Joining me now is best-selling author Douglas Murray. His latest book on democracies and death cults has just hit the shelves. Douglas, let's start with sickening cases of abuse and neglect of vulnerable children ignored by authorities in the name of anti-racism or so-called progressive ideology. The front page of the New York Post today says it all. Kids doomed. ACS's, that's Administration for Children's Services, progressive agenda led to 7 child deaths. Douglas, the cases here are sickening. Kids abused, long-term, starved, mistreated. And the paper says they are victims of an agency stubbornly committed to a progressive ideology that considers removing children from a troubled home, no matter how abusive, to be cruel and even racist, leaving too many children to fend for themselves. And sadly, Douglas, I think this is not just a problem in New York, but in many parts of the Western world.
That's right, Rita. I mean, it's an unbelievably shocking story. You would have thought that, of all jobs that local government authority is meant to see through and commit to, you'd have thought that the looking after, caring for the most vulnerable in society would be something that everybody could just agree on as a priority. But as the New York Post says, the ACS in New York is one of many such agencies across the US and indeed across the rest of the Western world that really regards ideologies of other kinds as trumping that. And especially the so-called anti-racist ideologies and all of the diversity, equity stuff, that actually those things trump child safety. That, as the Post says today, people who should be caring for these children instead are in hock to this ideology that says to interrupt the family. Even a family where a child's being abused is in some way itself abusive because it could be racist. This is really where the rubber hits the road on ideologies, like the whole DEI thing. The question is, are you going to pursue this ideology all the way, even at the expense of vulnerable children? Or are you going to have other priorities? I would hope, after the attention that these horrific cases have now got, more people who should be making childcare a priority will do so instead of these absolutely inappropriate and wildly unuseful ideologies.
You would hope so, but as we've seen in the UK with the grooming gang scandal, the lessons haven't been learnt there, where vulnerable young girls were just abandoned by authorities in the name of community cohesion and PC agenda. Now, staying in the UK, an extraordinary story is unfolding there, with revelations that an Iranian terror attack was just hours away from being launched on British soil before it was foiled by counterterrorism officers. British police arrested 8 people, including 7 Iranian nationals, on suspicion of terrorism offences. The UK Telegraph reports that authorities feared the attacks on a specific premises was imminent, and there is speculation, Douglas, that the target may have been a synagogue or another target linked to the Jewish community. This is, Douglas, certainly a frightening development.
It is very frightening, but sadly not surprising. Iranian terrorists have targeted people in a bewildering array of countries by now. They, of course, famously carried out bombings of Jewish community centers in South America some years ago, in New York City, in Brooklyn and elsewhere. Iranian government assassins tried to kill, again, just a year or two ago, a very brave Iranian exile who is critical of the regime. They tried to kill this young woman. In America, the Iranian government's most prominent media outlet boasts about this. Just the other week, as I wrote in the Post the other day, just the other week, the editor of one of the main organs of the Iranian revolutionary government, who has the ear of the supreme leader and is generally regarded as being a spokesman for him, said that it was still the intention of the Iranian government to put a bullet in the skull of President Trump. And he said, hopefully that day will arrive soon. It is amazing. We'll wait and see what unfolds in the UK about this terror cell and its prospective targets. But I don't think anyone should be that surprised by it. Iran has been pumping terrorists, obviously, around the region it's in. But the revolutionary government's also been trying to carry out assassinations with impunity in America, in other countries for years now. I do wonder when we'll start to take them seriously and actually do anything in response.
Meanwhile, Douglas, Keir Starmer continues to obsess about the threat from the so-called far right. Now, Nigel Farage's Reform Party had a stunning result at council and by-elections on Thursday. The party has now taken control of 10 local councils, won 2 mayoral races and added a 5th MP to its ranks. Farage is hailing Reform's triumph as unprecedented. He says it's the end of the two-party rule in the UK. Is he right? He is taking votes from Labor and the Tories, Douglas.
Well, Nigel Farage has done this before, of course. He led the Brexit Party and indeed UKIP to stunning electoral successes, principally back then in the European Parliament when Britain was still a member of the EU. So there are 2 things I think people have to bear in mind when they look at these elections. One is that they are local elections. Turnout tends to be low, and it tends to be the case that people punish incumbent parties. So that's definitely the case. It was an undoubtedly successful night for Reform. That doesn't necessarily mean, though, that Reform can see that through at a general election. As you know, Rita, the whole setup, and as Nigel Farage knows better than anyone, the whole setup of the first past the post system, which is intended to give strong governments and sometimes does. But the whole point of it really is that an insurgent party like those that Nigel Farage has led for some 30 years now it is effectively, it's very hard at general elections to break through. You see the number of votes that were needed or the number of votes that happened at the last general election per Reform MP as opposed to the number of votes per Labour MP. And I mean, it's way off. So we'll see. There are, of course, more than 4 years to go till the next general election in the UK. The problem that Farage obviously poses principally is not to Labour, although it definitely does chip away at Labour's vote and did do here. The principal threat is to the Conservative Party. If the Conservative Party cannot see off threat from Farage and Reform, then they really don't deserve to exist. But it should be possible for the Conservative Party to see them off. It's just that the Conservative Party has to, first of all, have policies that can outflank Nigel Farage's policies. And secondly, of course, to find some way back into the public trust after 13, 14 years of Conservative governments, for instance, saying that they were going to lower migration while seeing migration go through the roof. It'll take quite a long time for the electorate to forgive the Conservative Party for that, I think. But the Conservative Party will have to address that question, and it'll have to do so much faster than they're doing at the moment.
Now, Douglas, I can't wait to get your take on this bizarre interaction involving the BBC chairman, Samir Shah, who is asked whether Hamas are terrorists. Now, much frivolity and squirming and giggling follows.
One last question, just for you as an individual, Samir. Do you consider Hamas to be a terrorist group?
I'll have to answer that in terms of the way we currently view it.
What do you think they are? Do you think they're a convocation of happy little squirrels?
I don't think that. I don't think that. But I'm here as a chairman of the BBC.
I know you are, but you're also here as Samir Shah. You exist as an individual entity.
I can tell you what I think when I'm Samir Shah. Right now, talking to the world, I am the chairman of the BBC, and we have taken the view as a board that we continue to use the word terrorist only with attribution. That's the position we take.
I think
Although...
I think you think they're terrorists, Samir.
Douglas, if he thinks they're terrorists, then why doesn't he say so? I would hardly think it's a controversial opinion.
Isn't it bizarre, Rita? I mean, it's not hard to call Hamas terrorists, not just because they are, but because they're designated as such in the UK and most other Western countries. I mean, what's so difficult about that? I think really what we see there, I couldn't quite believe the sort of jolly squirming of Samir Shah on that. I mean,
Mm.
he's talking about people who have been busily murdering other Palestinians in recent days, and who, of course, for years have tried to commit genocide against the Jewish people and say they want to wipe the Jewish people off the face of the earth and everyone else next. Now, I mean, I can't see why any of that is such a sort of squirmingly funny matter to Samir Shah. I'd like to see him laugh his way through an interview about any other genocidal group that wanted to wipe out any organization or group of people from the face of the earth. It's very, very strange behavior. All I can think of is that Samir Shah, the chairman of the BBC, is trying to squirm out of that because he's aware of the number of his colleagues or employees underneath him at the BBC who think that Hamas is some kind of liberationist movement who shouldn't be smeared with the terrorist label. And that if Samir Shah, is too strict about saying that Hamas are terrorists, then he'll have hell to pay from the newsroom floor and from junior reporters and junior editors and so on. It's really quite despicable. It's not a difficult one, that, at all. But yes, I mean, it tells us about what he's swimming in at the BBC, that is a difficult question to answer. I'd love to see him do it on any other group, as I say. I mean, I don't know if he finds Al Qaeda as chortlingly funny as he does Hamas or ISIS or anyone else. But it tells you an awful lot about the way in which the BBC just contorts itself on these really quite straightforward questions. But yeah, I completely recognize the thing he's swimming in. It's a newsroom and an organization that finds it incredibly hard to actually call Hamas what they call themselves.
That I would think he would have taken far more seriously a question like, can a woman have a penis? Because he wouldn't want to be laughing at that. That would be a very serious, sober analysis. Before you go, Douglas, I have to get your take on Prince Harry's latest media interview. He's sat down and again moaned about the state of the relationship with his family. He says King Charles will not take his calls, and Prince Harry apparently is desperate for reconciliation, but King Charles is rejecting efforts to reconcile. Why do you think that is?
It's really pitiful, I have to say, Rita. Very sad. Prince Harry, as I've said to you before, had a great opportunity when he turned his life around, joined the British Army, and served with distinction in Afghanistan. He had a real chance to make a hell of a go of it with his life, and to be a role model and to encourage other people, including other young men who may have lost their way, to find themselves on a good path. And then he veered way off it. And, now when he says that members of his family don't want to take his calls, I mean, it's very hard to know whether he realizes why that might be. Because the reason it might be is that whenever any member of his family speaks to him, they might find what they said either written up in another book or relayed in interviews with the BBC and other channels. So, it's a very peculiar thing that's going on in Prince Harry's head, and I feel very sorry for him if he can't grasp this. If people around you know that you're likely to run and broadcast what they say in private to the world, then yeah, they might be reticent in speaking to you. And the way to mend that isn't to go on television and relay the fact that they're not speaking to you at the moment. I mean, if he said, I want to reconcile with my father and I'll do anything it requires, but I think it should be done away from the cameras and without any spare volume 2s or anything like that, and there'll be no cooking shows involved. It's just a family matter. If he did that, maybe he could actually make this reunion that he wants. But this is the worst way to go about it. I can't imagine who is actually advising Prince Harry other than possibly for his wife, because I think only she could give him PR advice this bad.
I think it is Meghan. I mean, this is straight from her playbook, it seems, to go to the media, to whine about something that is just going to make that problem far worse. And he's now claiming that they never claimed the royal family or any members of it were racist. I mean, they're trying to completely rewrite history and memory hold that Oprah interview. Douglas Murray, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for your time tonight.
Great to see you, Rita. Thank you.